All right, I want to get into the nominees, guys, because I think this is where I think people do it. But before I get there, I just want to really, everyone in Washington keeps telling me, I'm so surprised. And I've told you before, if you're surprised, you're watching the wrong show. If you're surprised, at some point, it's on you. We've been telling you about everything that's coming down the pike. So anyway, stop being surprised. The only thing you should be surprised for is when like a natural disaster or something takes out your power. If I am surprised, I'm okay because I have a Patriot Power Generator in my house, the Patriot Power Generator 2000X. You can get one at 4patriots.com/Spicer. Here's the thing about that makes this different. I've had a generator in the past. I had the one that you had to put gas in. It's noisy. It has a ton of fumes. You can't move it inside or out because you have to keep it outside because of the fumes and the noise. And you have to hope that you can get gas. The Patriot Power Generator 2000X is run off a solar panel that comes free with it. So as long as you have the sun, and I think we all do, you're good to go. And you can power the most powerful things in your house, including your refrigerator, tablets, computers, medical devices. Everything's there. So the kids are going to be happy. It's also portable, so you can pick it up. And it's heavy, but it's not, I can pick it up. I put it on my kitchen counter. You can bring it to places. You can bring it to a friend's house, a family member's house if they were in trouble. But it gives you peace of mind if the power goes out for days, weeks, or months. And like I said, the cool part is you don't have to worry about running to a gas station or hoping that they take your credit card or whatever, right? That's the cool thing about this. It runs for hours on end on the solar panel that comes free with it. So go to 4patriots.com/Spicer. All right, Patrice, I think let's just start with the big one, right? Everybody's head blew when Matt Gaetz got nominated to be Attorney General. Tell me what you thought.
I was shocked. I took a couple minutes to pick my jaw up off the floor because Matt Gaetz is certainly, he is well known in DC, but I don't think he would be the first person you would think of to head up the Justice Department. However, that said, I wouldn't call him anything. I wouldn't go to the ends that people have said that he's not qualified. I mean, if you are interested in Ivy League pedigree, he's got that covered. If you're interested in someone who is willing to go toe-to-toe with agency heads, he has done that in many different contentious congressional hearings. So he demonstrates both strategy and intellect. He's sharp. And number three, I mean, he understands that there are so many, the deep state is deep. And the weaponization of the Justice Department under Merrick Garland means that anybody who comes in there can only be a +1 in terms of just rooting out the type of corruption, the type of misgivings and political targeting against regular Americans, speaking out at your kids' public school hearing because you want to make sure that there's accountability rather than focusing the target of the federal government on the bad guys, the terrorists, and so on. So, I look forward to seeing if he survives the confirmation hearing. But if nothing else, it's just great to see MSNBC and I'm sure The View ladies just, falling and collapsing on the floor over this one.
Rob, you guys at the Daily Signal are in touch with the movement. What was the reaction by sort of the people that read the Daily Signal? Like, were they excited? Were they fired up?
Definitely. I sense a lot of excitement just because, as you noted, Sean, Matt Gaetz is a known quantity. I mean, people are familiar with him from his contentious exchanges at hearings with people like Merrick Garland and others. I mean, he's somebody who is a very prolific communicator. I think that there's a pattern here in Donald Trump's choices. I mean, you see it with Matt Gaetz, you see it with Marco Rubio, Tulsi Gabbard. You see it with Pete Hegseth, obviously, given his role on Fox and Friends. I mean, Trump is looking for people who can communicate effectively to the American people and I think articulate a vision for how he wants to see this country governed. Now, under Matt Gaetz, I'm sure that his deputies and the people who will be leading the individual departments will need to execute all of those different policy ideas. I mean, you have somebody on the top and they are not necessarily always getting into the weeds of everything. But generally speaking, I sense that, aside from the disappointment yesterday over the John Thune election from the MAGA crowd, they have been very pleased with Trump's election so far.
Doug, I'm going to put this mildly. I don't think Matt plays well with everyone. And that includes, right, I get it, the Democrats are not going to like him. But there's some, I mean, you think about, like, Kevin McCarthy's obviously gone, right? So, but he took him head on. But there are others, even in the Republican conference in the House, and I get that it's the Senate that has to confirm him, who on a personality basis have issues with maybe how their interactions with Matt. From your standpoint, where do you think his prospects are going forward?
It's going to be tough. Look, I mean, it's like everything. If you go into the world of, Twitterverse, Xverse, whatever you want to call it now, the social media realm, that's an isolated world that talks to itself. The reality is, as you just saw yesterday in the Senate, they elected John Thune. Most of us who've watched the Senate for most of our time and we've ever watched it knew that was going to be the outcome. I mean, you were maybe looking at it different, but you already knew McConnell had 15 to 20 votes already. And McConnell, and I am saying that correctly, McConnell had those votes in his pocket. He knew who he was going to support, and it played out that way. And the 12 to 13 votes for Scott was sort of the pre-baked number that you thought was going to go there. Doesn't mean I like it. Doesn't mean anything else. I'm a realist, and it's just where it was. Now, the problem is Thune does not have the deep pockets of McConnell. He does not have 18 years of being leader. He does not been there and get most of them elected. So he's going to have to tread much more to Trump than McConnell ever would in this situation. All of that said, and you brought up the House, there's a reason Jim Jordan is not Speaker. Okay? There's a reason Steve Scalise is not Speaker. It's because of internal House dynamics, and internal Senate dynamics are true, and they're isolated. Senate is even more isolated than the House are because most of them are 4 to 6 years away from being elected. They don't even care until they get into the 2-year cycle. So his prospects in the Senate, I've already heard, and y'all may have heard different. I've heard at least 3 to 4 who've already said, no, this is probably not going to happen, which puts him at the minimal, the vice president having to put him over. I think it's also why, and I'll throw this in here, why you heard a lot about recess appointments.
Yep.
And this could get interesting. But this could be actually into a constitutional recess appointment because the same ones in the Senate may not vote for him. They're also not going to vote for a recess knowing he would get appointed. So it puts the House and the Senate at odds, which the president then I didn't do my research on this. I apologize for that. Nope. I don't know when the last time a president actually adjourned the House and the Senate under that condition. So, but if that happens, but then remember, he also goes in as acting, not as confirmed. And if we remember Chad Wolf at Homeland Security in the last administration and others, there were a lot of lawsuits brought about things and actions that they did saying that an acting position can't do these things.
Yeah, the current labor secretary and the Biden administration continues to be active.
But they ruled that she could. Was her name Chu or Shu? They said she has the full authority to stay in there.
No, my understanding is that was not a recess appointment. She was already in a different position at labor, and basically.
But so was Chad. He was undersecretary.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think she was undersecretary.
Correct. Yeah, if you go back, remember, Sean, you'll remember this: the lawsuit against the Obama administration when he appointed by recess appointment to the NLRB. Yep. I believe the case went all the way up to the Supreme Court, even. So, yeah, this is there are even conservatives who I think are nervous about Trump using the recess appointment powers when it comes to installing people into these positions. And so my hope is that the Republican senators can get together and even if it comes down to J.D. Vance's tie-breaking vote, you'll have a situation where we won't need to get into that scenario.
Yeah, this is a Republican Lawyer Full Employment Act. I mean, this is in Democrat Lawyer Full Employment Act.
Yeah, by the way, and and he got Bill McGinley as White House counsel. As a side note, I named him along with some other deputy chiefs of staff. And Bill McGinley's not a household name, but I'm telling you, he is a sharp. I've known Bill a long time. Yep. He was the cabinet secretary in the first, again, low key roles, smart guy, and you make sure that all of the legal prowess is behind their arguments. But I want to pick up on something that Doug said, Patrice, because this is the prevailing Washington narrative, that these senators who are 4 and 6 years out don't care about outside pressure, that they're immune from the MAGA influencer world. I think that's, I asked Tommy Tuberville that the other day, and look at Rick Scott ended up getting 13 votes. Cornyn got 14. Thune didn't get it on the first ballot. Right. Mm-hmm. And so my point is that I would, you look back the last cycle, Jeff Flake, Ben Sass, these other folks who went against President Trump retired. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then faced re-election. And I get that it might be 4 years from now, but I remember when when Ronnie Jackson was up for VA secretary and John Tester from Montana said, I'm going to shoot him down. Right. President Trump said basically like, I'm gunning for you. Now he missed him the first time, they got him the second, but he made it a mission. And Don Jr. went out there and campaigned. And I mean, like, my point is, I don't know that do you really want you might get away with your vote right now, but do you really want this early in a Trump 2 administration to take on the president because you don't like Matt Gaetz?
I don't think so. President Trump, this is, for all intents and purposes, this is now his party. And, to the point about that you were making, 2016, most of these members have been elected after that. It's a new generation. And there is a greater allegiance to President Trump, recognizing not just him as a person and a loyalty factor, but his ability to get pass an agenda that's going to both help you politically, but also, if you really care about the nation, help the nation. I think he's going to be able to do it. And people who have misgivings about Matt Gaetz, they're just going to have to kind of suck it up and deal with it. I will just say I'm excited about the generational change that I've seen with these cabinet appointments. Very few baby boomers and silent generation folks other than President Trump himself. These are older millennials and Gen Xers who, by the way, delivered this election for President Trump. And I think there's a different focus. There's a greater affinity for disruption, having been digital natives, having seen, or I guess, grown up with technology disrupting industries from Uber all the way to, Amazon. And I think there's just a different focus and a mentality in these younger members generationally that I'm excited about. And I think that's an untold story in when you look at these nominations.
I love that. And you just gave Rob Bluey in the Daily Signal a whole, narrative to go down. The other thing that I think is interesting is, and we'll see how this plays out, but he's getting a pretty diverse cabinet. I mean, and that's not ever the goal. I don't think I've said this before. He does not think like that, but he chooses the best. Do you think about the different people that he's getting involved in their backgrounds, not just the color of their skin or their gender, but their backgrounds? I mean, I think that Patrice's point is well taken, like the youth and the next generation type. But let me play this out for a second. Like just real quick, let's start with this. Does Matt Gaetz get confirmed? Yes or no, Rob?
Yes.
Doug?
How? That's my question.
Okay. No. I said the word.
I said he can. Yes.
Okay. I said the word confirmed
yes,
because he can.
If he know how.
Okay, because if he gets acting, that's not confirmed. So just so we're clear, does he get confirmed by the U.S. Senate?
Right now, it's razor edge.
Okay, Patrice.
Yes.
Okay. Next question. After Matt Gaetz, knowing what we know as of this moment, you got Tulsi, Kristi Noem at Homeland, Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense. Who would you say of those is the most sort of is on the Democrats' second number 2? Like, we want Gaetz. I think we could probably all agree on that that's one the Democrats just are going to vote in. But who is the next, if they could get one more scalp, who would it be among the folks? And maybe not even, maybe someone I listed that I didn't list, but who would you think the Democrats would want to go after next, Rob?
Probably Pete Hegseth. I mean, that is somebody who it clearly wants to shake up the Department of Defense. It's interesting, Sean, because you've had quite a change, this political realignment that we're in, where you have a tendency for the Democrats who've invested heavily in really politicizing the military, bringing in woke ideology, DEI, and Pete Hegseth has said quite vocally that he wants to change a lot of that. I think it's going to come in and shake up the establishment. I think that's why you saw people like Senator Elizabeth Warren so vocally come out after the announcement of Pete Hegseth to say that she was, very, very much opposed to him, because they see that as a threat. They see the military as their playground, and Pete Hegseth wants to take that away from them.
You know what I love, by the way? You've got this clown, Ezra Klein, at the New York Times, questioning Pete Hegseth. And my answer is this, just stop for a moment. And let's talk about qualified. Pete is a Princeton grad. He ran the Veterans Service Organization, Concerned Veterans for America, right? He's been a longtime advocate of veterans. He ran an entire organization for that. He deployed to Gitmo, Afghanistan, and Iraq, okay? I mean, who is Elizabeth Warren to question his credentials to serve?
But Sean, you missed it. He doesn't have his diploma from Raytheon.
No.
He doesn't have his diploma from General Dynamics.
Right. No. Doug Collins for the win, because that's the point. I think I was getting. That's exactly where I was going, Doug Collins. But don't you think, from a tactical standpoint, that's how I would fight this? I'm sorry, Elizabeth Warren. When I missed it? After you were faking your ancestry at Harvard to get a job, when was your service to this country before you questioned mine?
She was with Tim Walz.
In Tiananmen Square?
Yeah.
My view is, if these guys message this right, I think that, like, to me, if I were Pete Hegseth, and I know Pete, I mean, like, he's a fighter, and I would be like, bring it on. Because remember how Brett Kavanaugh said he came out of the box in that sack of the accusations, and he was just like, don't you dare question my integrity. And, like, if Pete Hegseth is willing to do that, and I think he is, like, I would take these guys on and be like, don't you dare, you liberal little snot. Like, I can't. I mean, Ezra Klein, I would just bottom line, whether it's Ezra Klein at the New York Times or Elizabeth Warren, the idea that they're questioning the qualifications of somebody who has served this country over and over and over again and sacrificed for it, I would welcome that fight.
It should be an easy one. It should be an easy one. To your question, about who else, a lot of the other picks are kind of flying under the radar. There's a lot of focus and attention on Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy because of this kind of quasi-government agency that's pretty apparently is going to be set up to be short-lived, 2 years, but really look at cutting the waste and the fraud and whatever the case is in the federal government. There's a lot of attention being drawn over there because I think it's, again, to try to win the public opinion vote. Now, that said, I don't think these are going to be these nominees will have to be confirmed by the Senate. I don't know, Doug, if you know differently, but there's a lot of attention being drawn their way because I think it's just meant to undermine the goals of this new agency and what it's going to produce, whether it's a report or recommendations to President Trump. So that's where I'm looking at where a lot of the attention is right now. And it's fear that a lot of government programs, whether it's funding for these private companies or for the nonprofit groups, the charities that get or universities and colleges that get a lot of money for funding a lot of these ridiculous, wasteful programs, they're going to be kicking up a lot of dust over those guys too.
I think. Go ahead.
No, I just think that what Patrice brought up, the fact that, I'm sorry, Doug, you brought up the industrial complex opposition to Matt Gaetz. When you go in and start playing with spending and talking about reforming the government and making it more efficient and effective, you're cutting out somebody's gravy train. You're shutting down the gravy train trail. And this is where Patrice, these guys, I hate to tell you this, but they are going to get hit with lawsuits. The unions are going to come after them because this is their lifeblood. The waste and inefficiencies and disgusting nature of what happens here is how a lot of people just suck off. Well, what?
Yeah, here's what you're going to have, Patrice. You bring up a great point, but they'll do this under executive order. It's not an agency in percents the way we think of an agency. It's going to be an executive order, and then they're going to still have to work with Congress for money. Look for that to possibly come through reconciliation. Because the Democrats will never vote for it. Democrats will never go for it in the Senate. So, so I think that's where you can do this. Believe me, I've passed lots of bills. I know how you can do it. So they can get this done, and they're going to provide the cover for department heads to make changes and stuff like that. So, because they'll be the quote lightning rod, if you would, in the middle. You talked about the second one here. I think it's Tulsi. It's sort of quiet.
Really?
Right now. Yeah, and just hear me out. This breaks down on the DNR line. Okay. Just think, for everybody here, and I've known Tulsi and I came in together. All fairness, Tulsi and I are friends. I've known her since we were sworn into the Congress in 2013 together. I've been to Hawaii. We've shared, dinners together. I actually swore her into the Air Force, to the Army Reserve when she transferred from the Guard. We're good friends. But remember, 2016, she was Bernie Sanders' top surrogate. In 2020, she ran for herself for Democrat for president. And then, then she broke from the Democratic Party, calling out what she saw as a problem in the Democratic Party in very vocal and very stark terms. That's where I think, so you just sort of start with the zero effect of, I don't see a Democrat saying, I'm going to now throw Tulsi a lifeline. I think she gets confirmed. I think there's no problem in her getting confirmed. But I think one of the things we talk about is what's the chatter going to be? the chatter is going to be around that. That's where the Democrats are going to make it.
Well, because they're pissed, Doug. I mean, because they're like,
Yeah.
you betrayed us. Yeah.
It is. Well, you think. I mean, think about what's been said on podcasts, maybe yours and others about. And again, I don't disagree with any of it. Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, Jeff Duncan from Georgia, and everybody else from Republicans when they swapped over and went for Harris for president. You know, it's just look. It's the old. You got the wrong uniform. As Lynn Westmoreland, former congressman from Georgia, he was a NRCC chairman. He was recruitment, and he recruited a guy to run against a Democrat who he was good friends with. And the guy saw him on the House floor. And he come up to Lynn. He said, "Why are you recruiting somebody to run against me?" And Lynn, just in an old South Georgia voice, he said, "I'm sorry, bud, but you just got the wrong uniform on." And it's just the way it is, you know. So there could be. I think another one that'll get a lot of talk, still very much confirmed, very much going on, is Lee Zeldin. Lee's a great friend. Lee will do great things at EPA, but the environmental groups have not kicked in yet on that one. Wait for that. Will be
that's it's interesting because I think look. Guys, the thing about every one of these Trump picks is they mean business. President Trump got them each because they're fighters and they're willing to shake things up and enact his agenda. And the left knows it. I mean, this is kind of what Patrice was talking about. Like, these guys get it. Their way of life is being challenged right now. Their existence, their funding. And I agree with you. I think the environmental groups are like, Lee Zeldin scares the crap out of all these guys.
He should.
Yeah, he should, and every one of them should. I'm telling you, every single one of them.
I'm happy.
Going in and saying, "Hey, by the way, I want the Department of Defense to be focused on mission readiness and warfighting." Holy smokes, that's nuts!
Hey, there's two of us on this. And I apologize, I don't know the other two, but Sean, I know you and I are both in. We're still in the military. And
thanks for reminding everyone, Doug.
Yeah, I'm reminding you right now. You got to go do your time. Your fit test is up, by the way. No, but think about it. You and I see what can be done in the military, and it's we. But here's the problem: there's a disconnect in Congress. We have less and less members who've actually served. Okay, so you're down into the 15%, 60%. They vote for stuff at the Pentagon. I mean, think about it right now. The chairman of House Armed Services never served, and I love Mike Rogers to death, but he never served. Adam Smith, next to him, ranking member, never served. And so when they put money out in NDAA, they put appropriations bills out in NDAA. I've had members tell me, because like I remember I used to vote against OCO funding, which is it was a separate budget.
Overseas contingency operations.
Yeah, overseas contingency funds. Not because I didn't think we needed it, but because, as I said, if we've done this for 15 years, it's now a budget item. It's not outside the budget. And so, but then I had a member tell me, Doug, I'm not a veteran like you. I can't vote against this. That's the problem.
Right. No, it's like so many issues where if you're in that group, like, you know, whether it's ethnically or whatever, you can be critical of your own folks. Like, I can criticize the Irish. I know that they do. But you gotta, all right, real quick. We gotta wrap up. It's Thursday. We always do winners and losers. Don't have a ton of time. Rob, do you have a winner and a loser for this week?
I do, Sean. Thank you. Well, you and I had the opportunity to see the best of journalism on display at the Dow Prize. And what an honor to give to Susan Crabtree, overall grand prize winner.
All right, good. That's a great call. Congratulations, Susan Crabtree. Investigative journalism at its best. Who's your loser?
Okay, my loser is Bob Casey, the senator from Pennsylvania, who simply won't concede despite the fact that he's down by 30,000 votes and just wants to drag this out.
Election denier.
I know. All right, Doug Collins, winner and loser.
Winner, it's going to be Trump for the next 10 weeks. In the winner side of this, I mean, because we're just around. My loser for the week is the college football playoff system. There's no way the University of Georgia drops to 12.
Oh, okay. This is the benefit of going to a D3 school. I don't care. All right, Patrice, give me a winner and a loser.
Susie Wiles, she's going to be, Trump's right-hand woman, and she's a smart, strong woman right next to the president. And my loser, Sunny Hostin, co-host of The View, who said that she gave Kamala Harris a softball question, what would you do differently? Right. And Harris couldn't hit it. And she followed up and said, are you sure? And Harris still couldn't do it. And Sunny Hostin realized at that moment she helped to lose the election for Kamala Harris. So I'll give her a
Good.
loser, but she's also still a winner in many people's books.
I know. All right, my winner is all of the staff picks. We focus on the nominee, but people like Dan Scavino, Taylor Budowich,
Yes.
who are Bill McGinley, I mentioned, the staff picks for the White House are tremendous. They're not getting the credit they deserve for how good they've been. James Blair, he got appointed Deputy Chief of Staff, fantastic. And my loser of the week are norms. All these people are saying that's not normal. That's not how it's like, screw it. Buckle up, baby, is what I keep saying. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.